Lee, thanks for the awesome opening there. I want to first of all thank Mike Andes for putting on a first-class event. Probably one of the best well-run events I've ever seen, and the Augusta team. Obviously, we're getting in, and I love the fact that we're hard-hitting 30 minutes in and out. So I'm going to try to talk as fast as Mike Andes up here if possible and drop some knowledge here. But I'm going to dive right into it. My talk tomorrow, I'm going to give a little background of why we built automations and why we do what we do. But I want to lay out some foundations, how to actually go out and dominate your market for 2024. So in the early days of Callahan's Lawn Care, some of the issues right off the bat is we had a lot of overarching goals and dreams of how big the company was going to get. And after working with hundreds of business owners year after year in the lawn and landscape industry, one of the biggest issues I see that I was affected in the early years as myself is if we had a BHAG, this big, hairy, audacious goal, this Mount Everest, and let's say we're at $750,000 in sales this year, and we're going out to break 1.5 million. In 4 years, we want to be to 4 million. The issue is that when we set these lofty goals, there's no accountability. So Jim Houston talked about a little bit earlier about strategic planning. So what I'm going to suggest is as we're going in and building this big, hairy, audacious goal, as Jim Collins calls it, we actually want to go in and create 3 metrics that are non-emotional that we can go in and track from literally from 4 years all the way down to our base camp of this year. And those are going to be as measured by. In our coaching division, we like to call it AMB. But they're 3 non-emotional points. So if we're going to 1.5 million next year from our 750, what does that look like? And we need to go in and actually include our team or leadership team, depending on the size of the business. And it's not just going to fall on the business owner, but it's actually going to fall upon the business or the leadership team. This can't be done just by the owner-operator. Now, if you're a smaller business and you're owner-operator, this will fall on you, but we still need to have these 3 non-emotional points here. So as we're diving in, I'm looking at the number of customers, I'm looking at annual revenue, and probably the number of crews. And they are going to be defined at each one of these base camps to 4 million. So if we measure it, it is going to happen. But the worst thing we could see is, hey, I'm going to hit 1.5 million this year, and we get to November, December, and we haven't hit it. We barely broke 1 million if we even did that. So we need to get really clear about where we're at and non-emotionally where we are going. So as we go in, I'm going to give you the blueprint and an executable marketing plan that you guys can download for free at the end of this. But before we go in and actually put the fuel on the fire, we need to talk about some of the hurdles that we've seen in my lawn care business. First is growing fast without having the right people on the bench. We need to be able to go out and hire A players. We're going to talk about it in depth a little bit more, but we need to get really clear on our purpose, and we need to get clear on our mission, which is mission and mission strategies on the Everest. But the next part is our core values, what we're going to go out and actually hire, train, and eventually fire to. So before we go out and actually grow and scale in 2024, we need to go out and set a culture and get these A players on our team. The next issue is growing fast without knowing your numbers. Like I said, working with hundreds of businesses a year in the early days, we didn't know our numbers. Before we went out and actually scaled the business, we needed to know these numbers. But one thing I'm going to suggest that everybody in this room needs to know is what it costs you per man-hour break-even before you make a profit. So if we charge $100 an hour and it costs us $50, the delta is our profit. There's a brief show of hands, and if you're not willing to put your hand up, that's okay. But who in this room knows non-emotionally to the penny what it costs them to operate per hour per guy when they clock into the shop to when they clock out? If you do not know those numbers, Jim Houston, SimpleGrowth, there's a whole bunch of other people out there. Find those people. That is going to be the most liberating thing. But do not go out to scale your business at size unless you know those numbers non-emotionally. And the next thing is growing fast without enough cash flow. One of my mentors, lucky enough early in the day, was Jonathan Petoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire. His son Riley's here, so tell Dad I said hi. But I will tell you, the biggest thing I learned from Jonathan when I was able to spend 2.5 days with him is he said, build a cash war chest. At least 3 months of operating revenue. But I think Ben talked about it, being able to go out, or actually Jim Houston talked about it in the year of 2008. That was our biggest year. It was the biggest growth year. It was the most profitable year. But what we'd done is listen to Jonathan. We'd put enough cash aside outside of those 3 months. When everybody contracted in that recession, we doubled and tripled down. We spent $75,000 to $80,000 in marketing in a little less than a month, while everybody else in our market literally contracted. So if we're going into 2024 and things end up like they were in 2008, start putting that cash away, because that's how you're going to actually go out and have the ability to dominate the market. So as we're going in, we want to hire those A players. And I did a little research before we got into this talk, and I said, a lot of the research said, hey, a bad hire or holding on to a bad hire too long can cost you 2 to 3 times the person's salary. And I had a real hard time wrapping my head around it. So I'm a numbers guy, as you may know if you've seen some of my videos. The direct costs were really obvious to me. Help ads, screening, interview, training, bonus and raises. I could put those conceptual numbers in concrete and look at them. It's the indirect costs that I had a hard time actually looking at. But the first one was lower customer satisfaction. Bad reviews on Google, Facebook, people going out and telling their friends and family that, hey, this Callahan's lawn care service was not what I thought it was going to be. Customer cancellation. So at that point, we had a pretty good sales funnel, and we're driving them through all these new sales and leads through this funnel. But what happened is we held some of those A players that became B or C players, and those cancellations were kicking out the bottom. So we need to get really good on our service and customer retention. Next is loss in productivity. So the morale of the employees actually went down, because when we were in a pinch, in the early days, we would hire literally 2 feet in a heartbeat. We just needed to get through the week. We just needed to get through the next week or two, and then we'd find that great employee. Well, I will tell you that didn't happen. And then the worst was the no-call, no-and-show employees, or the late employees. And then your A players were picking up the slack, working extra hours, and eventually you'd lose your A players. So I got a story. I will hide the innocent, or not so innocent, I guess. But let's say Matt. Matt was actually a plow operator in upstate New York. We have 120 to 130 inches of snow annually. 3rd largest snowfall market in the whole United States. If anybody's here doing the snow, you know 130 inches of snow in a season is a lot of snow. But we were ready to give Matt a nice severance package and let him go. But we had a foot of snow, a storm coming, projected later in the week. So the leadership team at that point said, you know what? Let's hold on to Matt to get through that storm, and then we'll give him that severance package. And Matt had some personal demons, and he was an A player, but through some things going on personally, we just couldn't help him. But we needed to get him going where it would be a better place for him. But we waited to that storm. And if anybody's interested or familiar with snow removal, we did a pre-salt run. So he went out in a large dump truck with a 3 to 5 yard salter and a big plow on the top of this dump truck. Should have been an easy run. He was going around the parking lot a couple circles, should have left. I got a call at 2, 3 in the morning. Matt has backed the dump truck through the side of a building that we do not own. Luckily, it was a lumber company, because he hit the building so hard that the truck was halfway in and outside of the building. It was causing structural damage. So thankfully, they had the lumber and the materials in there and the manpower to actually shore up the building. But that night, our insurance went up $20,000 a year. And thankfully, or maybe unthankfully, the insurance company helped us, but nobody else would insure us. So not only was it $20,000 that year, but the 5 subsequent years, Matt cost me an extra $20,000. So if you wonder, holding on to a bad hire can be expensive, this is just one of many examples of 27, 28 years with that company that we made the wrong decision. Slow to hire, quick to fire, and if you know it's a bad fit, get rid of the person, send them on their way with a severance package. So what I want to do is give you 3 low-cost, high-return hiring strategies. We talked about core values a little bit. So we want to pre-screen with questions regarding around the values alignment. So when we pre-screen, the person, Christine or Andrea, would go in and say, hey, how do you feel about someone when they say they're going to call you back, but they don't? And if the person said, well, maybe they're busy, they forgot to do it, not a big deal. One of our core values was, we will do what we say we will do. That was a red flag. That was a misalignment of culture. In addition, we have job descriptions that fit the culture, talking about those core values and our purpose. Will they align to that? And the last part is a standardized selection process. 2 to 3 simple questions that we ranked every applicant on with an A, B, or C without a driver's license, and we interviewed for every position in the company at least once a week, including my own. We created our own labor pool to hire from. So when we grow really fast, we have people to hire, or if we have a mat, we can replace them. But the idea is literally building a bench, like a farm team for a professional sports team. We got the pro team, we got the farm team. We need to do that with our employees before we go out and scale. So as we're looking at this, I'm gonna suggest, just like Mike talked, I don't know if he was looking at my slide deck or I was looking at his, I'm gonna suggest you got 6 areas in your business that you are literally throwing money out, literally or figuratively. These orange little buckets across the bottom here. So we're going to fix the holes, or Mike was calling it the leakage, inside of our sales process. As we're coming across the left, we've got different people coming from Google, Facebook, AdWords, customer referrals. We're driving them to your website. If they do not request a website, or an estimate on your website, you are literally throwing money away. You've pulled good cash to get them there, but they haven't committed. Ben's talk earlier talked about a lead magnet. So we're giving something of value away in exchange for the first name, last name, email, and hopefully phone number. We're going to nurture those folks who paid money. If we're lucky enough to get an estimate request, we're driving them through our sales funnel. We're going through a short-term education, an automated estimate follow-up. We like to call that 20 days to close. But once again, if we lose the estimate, right here, here's your second place. If you're not segmenting them into Copilot and nurturing them, we've paid good money to get the lead, we paid good money to do the estimate. We need to nurture them, and through that relationship, we're going to upsell work. If we come across the top here, and we're lucky enough to get a one-time sale, if you do not have an automated process to upsell reoccurring work within the first 5 to 10 days, once again, that's your third leakage in your pipeline. Now, if we're lucky to come across the middle and sell a reoccurring weekly mowing or fertilization, the next bucket is, do we have a place to actually go out based on the seasonality, time points, and pain points to upsell another reoccurring thing? If not, once again, we're losing money. The next time across here is the ability to upsell one-time services after we've exhausted the reoccurring services. Fall cleanup, spring cleanup, aeration and overseeding in the fall. And the last one on the far left is we've kind of handled the loss estimate, but what about our canceled people? 80% of the people that cancel our services are indifferent. They don't love us, they don't hate us. But we need to go in, unless they're crazy, we mark them, do not market. We need to go out and nurture them. And then what we're seeing post-COVID, about 3% of all our canceled clients are coming back across the lawn care industry. So before we go out and scale, we want to get the right people, the A players. We want to get our numbers financially correct, and we want to get that cash war chest. We're going to hire to the purpose and the values, and now we're going to fix our leakage. Now we get to the fun part. We want to anchor our business to 2 to 3 core services, specifically reoccurring service, because that's where the value is. And we want to use digital marketing to broadcast a net across your whole entire service area. We can upload a custom audience from Copilot, our database, into Facebook of our leads, loss estimates, canceled clients, and if Facebook has registered them with their first name, last name, email, or phone number, a combination, we can retarget them. But we're targeting our whole entire service area. Then we're going to offline marketing to zero in for route density. We're going to go in and create a lead list potentially. We drove around every neighborhood that we serviced and wrote down the address of every lawn that looked commercially mowed from the lines and the stripes in it. We also went through to every driveway that looked commercially plowed. By the time we were done, we had over 10,000 people in our local market that we assumed were actually using our competitors, and we sent property-specific pricing as soon as the spring hit. In addition, we can use a SendJim integration we're going to talk about with Copilot and Zapier to actually do this process to send direct postcards to the people in the neighborhoods we're in or the neighborhoods in between we're driving. So we want to build that route density. So as we're going in, as a week or so ago, this is what was inside Facebook. It changes literally daily or weekly sometimes, but as of a week ago, this is what it looked like. So on the left-hand, or actually on the right-hand side as you're looking at it, we can drop a pin and we can go in and do geo-targeting up to 1 mile or 10 miles. That may work in most markets. I'm going to suggest we do the one on the other side over here. And that right there is the ability to put in all the postal codes you service, and we're going to cast the digital net across your whole entire marketing service area. In addition, if you're doing offline marketing with every door direct mailing inside the U.S. Postal Service, when you do that, it looks almost identical. So we can match up those areas to dive in and build route density. So what we're going to do is downsell basically gateway services. I believe Mike talked a little about this, or at least hinted at it earlier. What we're going to do is go in and use satellite measurements and create something called custom fields. These are variables of our turf square footage, number of small, medium, and large shrubs. And we're going to build pricing matrices for fast and accurate pricing that can be delegated. Once again, if we know our hourly revenue goal and our break even, the difference is our profit. We can put this into a price matrices, and we're currently working with Mike and the Copilot team to help build out pricing matrices inside Copilot, as well as an estimate template. So your 2 to 3, maybe 4 core services now load in a template, and if you have turf square footage in, you're automatically getting a price for your mowing, your fertilizing, mosquito control, and maybe aeration and overseeding. But they're automatically loaded with a price, a budgeted time, and a cost before profit. And everything works out, we already know what we're gonna make on that job. So if we're going in, we're gonna use a product called SendJim. We're gonna connect Copilot with Zapier. So this little circular pin right here is a new client. And when we get a new client inside Copilot, the automation is going to trigger off and grab the 9 surrounding homes with the red arrows. And we're going to do property-specific mailings through postcards to build route density. This is how we dominated the neighborhoods that we were in. Now, I would rather not see you shoot out 30,000 flyers or postcards. What I would rather see you do is shoot out 10,000 postcards 3 times to the same exact client. So we're hitting each client or lead 3 to 5 times, because statistically it takes 5 interactions or CTAs, engagement, to actually get somebody to work with your brand. So at a bare minimum, we're going to use 3. At a maximum, probably 5, depending on your budget. This is another example of Send Jim. We're able to actually go in now in this area highlighted. Either we're going to go in to build our offline density through flyers, door hangers, or go into Send Jim, select this area, and send out those 3 postcards. A quick case study we did with Tyler Grims of Integrity Sealing this summer. Tyler sent out to this neighborhood 3 times with a QR code on there. He tied into our software program called SimpleEstimate, where the customer was able to literally color in their service area with their finger. It calculated the price, and it was online shopping cart. Tyler had a 8% return on a cold mailing. After 5 mailings, he had a 57% closing ratio without ever talking to any of the clients. And then we ran this out over 2 months. He had a 19x return on his investment. So if you're still in the field, or you don't have time to do these estimates in person, I don't care the tool you're using. There's several out there. You should have an on-demand process, because right now, post-COVID, people want to buy when they want to buy, and they want to buy on their time. Filling out a form sometimes is not going to convert to sales quickly. So now that we've got all these marketing sources coming in, we need to track these things. So we're going to go into Copilot and build something out called a lead source. Mike talked about client acquisition costs. Well, in order to track this, we need to go in and either through a form or a Facebook ad, or when you're talking to them, we need to add that into Copilot. So the bottom right is literally adding the lead source. How did you hear about us? Was it Facebook? Was it Every Door Direct? Was it a client referral of a friend or family? But we're going to track that. And as we go into the report center in Copilot, off to the right here, we have the ability to actually see where they came from. So what we can do now is use this non-emotional data to build out a marketing plan that I'm going to give you a plug-and-play template to use. But now we should know how many people came from each marketing source. On average, how many became a client, our conversion ratio. Next, we're going to know our client acquisition costs that Mike talked about in one of his talks earlier. So Jonathan Potoshnik, once again, a lawn care millionaire, gave a great analogy. Imagine we got this vending machine up here, and I knew every time I went and did a Facebook ad, it cost me on average $100 to get a new client. And every one of your perfect Facebook clients are in there. So every $100 you've put in there, the perfect client kicked out, non-emotionally. How many $100 bills are you going to put in there? I'm going to put in as many as I can physically afford. But that ability is not there unless you track these numbers. So in 2008, during that recession, not only did we have the cash war chest, but I had the non-emotional data to say, if I drop $75,000 to $80,000 across these 3 marketing sources, statistically, this is what should happen. And it actually was better, because most of our competition sucked back. But the main thing is, if you're using Copilot or any other CRM, we need to be tracking those lead sources each and every day for non-emotional data. So next thing is we're going to create these pre-built estimate templates with pricing matrices. The development team from Copilot didn't give us access to having a screenshot of it, but they are working on it. But on the highest level in Copilot, this is what you're eventually going to see, or a version of it. You're going to be able to create production rate-based estimating with labor, equipment, product with product markup, and subcontractors. And you're going to have a non-emotional way now to have your estimated net profit, your total budget hours, and your estimated revenue per man hour. This is how we're going to non-emotionally be able to delegate all of our estimates to a virtual assistant like Call Boss out in the hall, or someone inside our office. But no longer is the sales process or estimate process wrapped around the business owner. It is a non-emotional, predictable thing that can scale without us. We can now leave the business and have those self-run free vacations. We're not constantly running out in the hall and returning phone calls. So this is what we're driving at. And if you're an owner-operator still, I would suggest literally blocking time off during the day for a half hour, 45 minutes before or after lunch to handle this process. Because once you have this, it is just clockwork. So there's a couple of key things that we need to look at to make this content and this sales process really effective. The first one, Ben talked about it actually, providing free information to people that are looking for your services. And we want to create a higher perceived value and focus you as the local expert. If you've ever read the book, They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, Marcus talks about this phenomenon called zero moment of truth. And according to Marcus and some other stats on Google, 20 to 25% of the buying decision right now is made before you even know that lead exists. So how do you go out and become the expert and answer the questions they have and concerns before you even know who they are? We need to get real big on a content play and provide videos that they have nothing to do with a sales pitch. It's literally talking about how a professional does it and answer all the questions that people ask your office. That's your content playlist. There's hundreds of videos that you could be putting out here, or a bare minimum white papers or PDFs. But I will tell you, it's a long-term play. And honestly, no one's going to watch your videos in the beginning, and that's okay because they're probably going to suck. All of ours did. But get them out there, and eventually, once you start getting that content going, that's how you're going to go out and dominate that market. The sales will be sold before you even get to them. Next thing is a short-term education. So once we know the specific service, if we haven't done an on-demand sale, we need to go out and educate them how a professional does that specific service. Lawn mowing, proper mowing height, how to sharpen the blades, how to balance the blades. And then we need to come over any of those sales and price objections around that lawn mowing. One of the biggest ones in our market was the contractor doesn't shut the fence gate, and I'm worried about the dog or the kids running out of the backyard. And let's face it, people do not trust themselves hiring a contractor, and they definitely do not trust us. But if we go out through a social play and become the local expert, they will begin to know, like, and trust us before they ever meet us. And by the time we get that estimate to them, they're ready to buy. And this is going to allow you to be the highest priced person in your market because you are now the expert in providing value. We're going to dive in tomorrow a little bit more about 20 days to close. It's the automated estimate follow-up system. But I want to give you some tips. Whether you're doing this manually or automated, I'm going to recommend automated. These are the keys to success of a 20 days to close process. Scarcity. Spots are filling up fast. We do not overbook our schedule. Deadline within the next 20 days. So about 18 or 19 days, do we have permission to close out your estimate? Client's like, wait a minute. If I don't sign up, I might have to get a new estimate. Or they've hired your competitors and haven't given you the actual courtesy to say that they've actually hired someone else. And when they're not showing up, they're not returning phone calls, you're just politely showing up. And then a call to action. Call back to save your spot, text us, need some CTAs in there. And then the main thing is something called omni-channel marketing. All that is really a fancy way of saying you need to follow up on 3 communication channels: automated email, automated text, and phone call. Yes, phone calls, folks. You may say, Mike, I don't have time to do phone calls. That's okay. We're going to tie in Copilot with Zapier again to send Jim. And what this is a ringless voicemail mom. It hits the cell phone file, looks like a missed call. And in my instance, hey, it's Mike from Callahan's Lawn Care. We dropped off a lawn mowing estimate 3 days ago, which actually happened. If you have any questions, call us back at this number. Otherwise, feel free to accept the online estimate. The idea is we want to make it personalized but automated to where the client is in the customer life cycle. So we want to follow up to upsell more profitable work. Mike and I think are literally playing for the same playbook here on some of our slides. But Mike talked about making an inspection where you're going and grabbing these custom variables, these custom fields. So if we can't measure on satellite, we're seeing how many small, medium, and large shrubs there are. What's the linear foot of the bed edging? What's the perimeter pest? Any of the things. So we're calculating in automation to send somebody out to actually go on site in 30 days from now to collect all the variables. So when they call for an estimate, we don't ever have to go back out there. We've got all of it at our CSR's fingertips. Once again, business owner doesn't have to do the estimating. It is now fully automated through the matrices and the delegation and collection of this data. So seasonal upsells, people are like, well, what do we do for the upsells? We want to go out, and some examples are weed control, grub control, aeration overseeing, spring and fall cleanups, and definitely are one-time to reoccurring services. The ticket here is that we need to segment our database in Copilot and make it personalized but automated. The worst thing you can do is send out an email blast right now in the fall and say it's time to sign up for fall cleanup. If you want an estimate, let us know. If you've already signed up for fall cleanup, just ignore this email. What you're telling your clients is you don't care about them and you are literally spamming them. It's hard enough to get a client, but it only takes seconds with bad communication to alienate them. So what I've got here is a marketing plan, plug and play. I'm gonna have a QR code here in a minute or two that you can actually download this. But the idea here is we've got Google across the top. You probably can't read that, but what we've got is we've got amount of leads produced last year. Sales at about 260. We had a closing ratio of about 35%. advertising spend, I believe, was about $18,000, and our cost per client acquisition was around 75 bucks. What we can do now is take this lead source and marketing data from Copilot and our other platforms that we're using and drive it into this sheet. And what we're going to do is have the number of new projected clients and the marketing expense per month. We've got a total cash flow projection. We've got our new client acquisition. We have our canceled client and our net new. So if you remember, taking it back to the beginning of the talk, we had that Everest mission, AMB, as measured by. We're driving that yearly goal of 1.5 million example down to monthly goals and quarterly goals, and eventually in the sales season, probably weekly goals. So we know where we're on track. So if we're not hitting it, we can make course corrections. But this tool is going to be yours, free to keep. I've got some instructions in there. You can plug your numbers in and set up a non-emotional data tracking system with cash flow projections for your 2024 market domination. So I want to wrap it up here. We don't just talk about the stuff, we actually do the stuff. So here are some of the ones I pulled out from Callahan's Lawn Care. But you deserve the most exceptional lawn care service and most powerful lawn care guarantee. And we talked about the things that we did that were completely different than everybody else in our market. There's really no pricing on here. It's just literally, these are some of the every door direct and pieces we did on the offline marketing. Next one here, once again, got to give credit where credit's due. Jonathan gave me a template of this probably about 15 years ago. And this is pretty similar to what he used at his company, CityTurf, to scale to 15 million. But my personal guarantee, my competition thought I was absolutely nuts, and boy, were they pissed. But how can you do that? How can you offer that and mail out 100,000 of these things? Well, if somebody calls your lawn care office, I'm assuming if something's wrong, you're going to go out and fix it. We're already doing it. But nobody else in your market is going to have the nerve to actually go out and publicly state it. Good reads that you would probably want to look at is Dan Kennedy, this long script marketing. That is coming back right now better than it ever has because there's not a lot of stuff in the mailboxes. So after you cast that digital net, we want to go in with offline marketing. And then the final one I want to show you here before I pop up that QR code, we're talking about what's included, but more importantly, we promise never to. Those are all the things we're addressing in our educational videos. And we're publicly saying we're not going to have service calls. We're not going to go out and miss a scheduled day for mowing unless it's inclement weather. But we're literally going in and addressing the issues why people are concerned and why they don't trust contractors. If you're different and you can stand behind it, that is going to be the key to dominate your market. But out the gate, you want to make sure we got the A players. We're going to hire to core values. We're going to get real clear on our purpose. We want to make sure we have those A players. We want to make sure we've got financial numbers in place. And we want to make sure we got that cash war chest. And when you have that cash war chest and we've gone out to a cultural alignment, that's how we're going to go out and dominate. So feel free, that right there is your free download for that marketing plan. And I'm really excited for the Augusta Nation here and everything else. This has been an amazing event. Can't wait to show you in my talk tomorrow how to actually go into the 5 stages of business and the growth and bottlenecks that you're going to see. Thanks, guys.